Hello everyone and welcome to Mars Garden and Kitchen. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make beet hummus. I just went to the farmer's market and picked up these nice little beets in here, and I'm going to roast them very simply and add them to my basic hummus recipe to make a very beautiful bright colored hummus. The first thing that we're going to do, we are going to roast these beets. I'm going to make a beet puree to add to my basic hummus recipe, which we're gonna make from scratch today too. I have some chickpeas that have been soaking overnight here. I like to cook my own chickpeas to make hummus, but if you want to use canned chickpeas, that works too. My favorite way to roast beets is to roast it in a little papillote scald, which is just a little pouch. I'm going to remove the tops of the beets, but I'm not gonna peel it. I found it easier to peel after it's roasted. I'm gonna save this, and I'm not even going to cut them in half because they would just kind of stain my cutting board here. I'm going to just cut a big piece of this parchment paper. I'm going to add them right in the center. You could do that with foil too if you wish. I just prefer to use parchment paper. Foil is a bit more resistant, but parchment works as well. Little bit of olive oil right on top of them, a little bit of salt, it's not gonna stick now, pepper, and some thyme. This is from my garden. I dehydrated and I kept in here in this jar, so I'm gonna add a few sprigs to it. Usually sometimes I'll just kind of take it out like this if I can pull a sprig, but that's enough thyme in there. Oops, don't want to lose anything. Alright, now we're going to make this into a pouch. So I'm just going to fold it over. Turn this way so it's easy to see. And I'm going to fold starting this side. From the edges, I'll fold it like this, and I will keep kind of folding, putting my finger in here and folding it over, so it makes it nice and tight. So what this does, it's going to help roast and steam, so it's like a combination cooking method. So I find it easier to cook this way. They could tend to take a very long time and make a mess if you cut them before or peel it. So that way you don't have to deal with it, handle it so much while they're raw. So after you make your little pouch, it's gonna look just like this. Again, you can do it with foil too. It doesn't need to be super tight. You can go over and tie that up a bit more if you want to, but I'm okay with this. And then we're gonna transfer this to a sheet pan, and I'm going to roast it for 45 minutes to an hour or until tender. And while the beets are roasting, I'm going to cook the chickpeas. I'm going to be using my Instant Pot today to do this because it's a pressure cooker, and you could cook this in the stove too, but I like my chickpeas to be really soft when I make hummus, to make it really nice and smooth, because I don't peel them. I know a lot of people say you have to take the skins off the chickpeas to make hummus. I don't do that. I find that if you just cook them a bit more, you can still get the nice and smooth texture. I also have a Vitamix, which helps. It's a high power blender. I'm gonna actually discard this first water, and I'm going to add the chickpeas to this pot. My kitchen is tiny, so I have to do this out here, so it takes a long time to do everything. So I'm just gonna go to the sink, discard this water, and I'll bring some more fresh water for us to put in this pot over here. Okay, so I'm just gonna add the chickpeas to the pot now. Feel free to use canned chickpeas too if that's easier for you. If you do use canned and want to make them a bit softer and smoother, you can also boil them in a pot in your stove with just a little bit of baking powder. Boil for about 30 minutes until they get really soft. They'll also do the trick to make a super smooth hummus at the end too. So I'm going to add water. I don't really measure my water to the ratio of chickpeas. I just like to cover, I would say, by double of the height of the chickpeas. So I just put it a bunch in here. It's always better to have more than less when you pressure cooking, so just use a bit more if you can. And I'm also gonna add some thyme since I have it out here to add some extra flavor. This is optional, you don't need to do that. You can also add bay leaves or just plain is fine too. And I'm gonna add a tiny bit of salt. This is optional too, you don't need to do that if you don't want to. That's it. Now I'm going to set up this pot for 20 minutes is too much. I'll do 15 minutes. And I'm gonna leave it on. It says it's on now. It's gonna stay saying on until this boils and come up to temperature. Once it comes up to temperature, then the timer is gonna start going down. But it's probably gonna take a little less time than the beets. While these two things are going, I'm just gonna prepare the other ingredients, which are very simple. Just lemon, cut the lemon and peel the garlic. And for the garlic too, I'm only going to add 1 clove. If you don't like garlic, try to get a small one because it can be overpowering, but I think that the garlic helps setting off a bit of the very earthy beet taste. So I'm gonna do 1 garlic. I just smash it, and I'm not even gonna mix or anything because we're gonna throw in the blender, so just like this is fine. Now I save all of my food scraps for making veggie scrap stock. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this. Put in here for now, then I'm gonna add to my ongoing bag that lives in my fridge. I love the flavor that lemon adds to veggie stock. So other than that, we're gonna need tahini. This is just a sesame paste. If you have a high power blender, but you don't have tahini handy or it's not easy to find where you are, you can just use sesame seeds, white sesame seeds toasted. You can add that when we're making the hummus to blend it all together. Also, lots of people make hummus in food processors. I prefer to make it mine on my Vitamix. That's up to you too. You can use what you have as well. It will also work out every time they make it homemade. It's usually much better than store-bought because you can add whatever you want. You can add more lemon if you want to. You can add less tahini if you want to. You can add more garlic. This also tastes really good with roasted garlic if you have some roasted garlic handy. If you want to roast some garlic when you're roasting the beets, that goes really good together, adding that sweetness in there. And also with this base recipe you can add other flavorings to it. So I'm going to be adding a bit of the beet puree to the hummus to make it pink, but you can also add some roasted bell peppers and bell peppers in season. You can just do the roasted garlic if you like, or add some olives. There's some, there's all kinds of flavors that you see in the supermarket. You can try to make it at home too, so that's pretty cool. And if you're not using any flavorings, you can use a tiny bit of the cooking water or the water that's in the can of the chickpeas to help the blender pick it up and blend everything as well. The timer for the chickpeas just went off, so I'm going to carefully release the pressure. I don't like to open all the way, so I go little by little. While we're waiting for this in here, I'm gonna go check out on the beets. I have this handy cake tester in here that I like to use for testing beets, but you could use a paring knife. It's not required, you just have this, so I like to use it. I'm going to open this real quick. Some steam usually releases when you do this, so be careful not to not burn yourself. This went in and it comes off super easily. Means they're very nice and tender. Usually you test the biggest one, so if the biggest one's ready, the other one should be ready as well. So our beets are ready and our chickpeas are ready. We're gonna go ahead now and start making our beet puree. I'm going to leave these beets on the side so they can cool off for a minute, and while that's cooling off, I'm going to strain my chickpeas. I'm going to use a bowl and a strainer for this, and gloves because this is going to be hot over here. And then I'm gonna transfer this back to there so it can drain to this part over here so it can drain out. Sorry about the light in my apartment right now. But this liquid over here that I have strained from the chickpeas, it can be used as a substitute for egg whites if you whip this. I always save this, I always reserve my liquid when I cook chickpeas. So I'm just gonna let this cool down on the side. They look very nice and tender. I'm going to take this thyme sprig out of there. Okay, so I'm actually going to blend all these beets whole like this, skin and all. You could, if you want to, you can peel the skins off with a little paper. It'll come off very easily. I don't know if you can see this. When they're hot, you peel them off kind of perfectly like this when they're hot. But I'm not going to do that because this, I just want to show you. I like to add the skins to my puree too. They're in the blender here. Just gonna place the lid on it. Start slow first. steam usually comes off right away when you do that. That's why I didn't close the top yet. And this is how it looks. So I'm just gonna go here and sort of push it to the sides again. And now I'm going to add a bit olive oil. And I also like to add a little bit of balsamic vinegar. This is optional, but I like the taste that adds to it, and also helps with brightening up the color a little more. Just a little bit of salt too. And I'm going to blend it again. How beautiful is this? I'm gonna leave some of this in the blender because we're gonna throw the chickpeas in here and we're gonna make the hummus in the same blender. The more puree that you add, the nicer the color of the beet hummus. I love the taste of beets, so I don't mind adding a lot in there to make it really nice bright pink. But if you don't like beets as much or don't want it to be the flavor to be so strong, just add a little at a time. You could take some more off. And don't worry too, I'm gonna have a link with the recipe for this in the description box down below, so you don't have to worry about taking notes right now or anything like that. And I'm just going to measure the chickpeas. I usually don't measure, I will just add whatever I have. Got exactly 2 cups of chickpeas. You take some more of these timestamps that were there. Important to take them out before you put them in the blender. Now I'm just going to add the chickpeas to our blender, and just a little bit of olive oil, not too much. A little bit of olive oil. I can always add more after depending on the consistency. And add the garlic there. And I know I added some balsamic vinegar, but I do like my hummus to be very bright, so I'm going to still add the lemon in here. Also, that helps cutting off the earthiness of the beet if you put a little bit more acidity in there. I'm going to start with only 1/2 of lemon right now, and I'm going to put some tahini. Now I'm gonna blend like this first, taste it, then I'm going to add the salt and maybe the other half of the lemon juice if it needs it. So it needs more liquid. Oh, that looks so nice. I'm going to add more beet puree because I love, as I said, I love the taste of beets. If you want to make this milder, you could add some of the chickpea cooking juice, but I'm going to add more puree for now. That's beautiful. Look at this color, so pretty. Taste this now. All right, so good. All right, I am going to add the other half of the lemon actually. I think it would taste really good. So a whole lemon to the recipe. Look at that. I'm going to now transfer this to a bowl. And this is it. Look how pretty this looks. We have our beautiful beet hummus over here. You could finish this with some olive oil, a little bit of za'atar if you have, or sesame seeds. I'm gonna put some black sesame seeds on mine. It goes well with the taste since there's some tahini in there. And I'm gonna go ahead and save the other half that I made there because this is a double batch. And we're gonna be eating this through the week. Finish this with a little bit more olive oil. And some black sesame seeds because that's what I have at home. Za'atar would be great, would taste really good, but I'll just put a little bit on the side here to make it look a little more interesting. And that's it. Beet hummus is ready. I have just made this bread here yesterday and I am going to have some with the beet hummus right now. Wow, that creme looks nicer than I expected. So let's try it. That's very good. To be honest, this is like the perfect lunch for me. I could put some microgreens in here, or some pea shoots, some sunflower microgreens, or you can put a fried egg, sunny side egg to have it in the morning. It's just so good. I really encourage you to try it. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Again, I'm gonna have the recipe written down in the description box down below. Just gonna have a link to my website and you can grab it from there. And let me know if you have any questions about it in the comment section down below. And I'll see you next time.